Hi everyone! In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a cloning image like the one you see here using Photoshop. But first, we need to start in Lightroom. Alright, and that's where your images should be. So we need to export those images in order to start editing them in Lightroom. So go ahead and find the images you are going to need for one of your cloning final images. So in this case, I'm going to use these two images. If you have more than two images, go ahead and select all the ones that you need. Holding down Control, we're going to right click, we're going to export, and right now we're not worried about naming them. We'll do that in Photoshop, so let's go ahead and just do a quick export, JPG large, and let's export to our OneDrive where we have our digital photo folder. Okay. Once those have exported, let's go ahead and close out Lightroom and anything else that might be running in the background, and let's get into Photoshop. Okay, from here we are going to open in the same document. So we're going to do something a little new here. We're going to go up to File. We're going to go down to Scripts. And then we're going to do what's called Load Files into Stack. Go ahead and click on that. It's going to give you a window that will allow you to browse. Let's browse. All right, let's go ahead and find, I'm already there, but let's go ahead and find our OneDrive, our digital photo folder, and then our images should be in there. So however many you chose to export, let's go ahead and select them. I'm going to hold Control to do so, and then press OK. You should see the images here, at least the names of the images. And before we press OK, come over to Attempt to automatically align source images. This is going to help us if your tripod or camera moved even the slightest bit. Photoshop is going to try to realign your images so that we don't have any weird editing mishaps. So let's go ahead and select that, and then we can press OK. And from here, you're going to see some glitching and moving around of the screen. But once it settles down and your layers panel is open, you should notice that all of your layers are present. Now, you're only going to see one of your clones visible, but if you make the top layer visible, you can see that the other one is directly underneath. Okay, so they should all be there. What you also might notice, at least for mine, is you might notice here some transparent edges. So my camera or tripod moved just the slightest bit when taking these photos. So Photoshop helped to realign the images because we marked that box earlier. Really important step. If you missed it, let's go back and do that again. All right, but if it's there, great. Let's make sure all the layers are visible, and let's make sure we have the very top layer selected, because we're going to start by selecting this clone. You can do this a couple different ways, meaning you can select it yourself using some of the selection tools, or if you want Photoshop to try to do it for you, which I'm going to do, go ahead and choose Select Subject. If Photoshop does not do a perfect job, we can go ahead and refine it using our selection tools. I prefer the Quick Selection tool, works like a brush, and I might have to use that here in a second. Yep, and as you can see, I totally do. Let's go ahead and zoom in. All right, notice that the selection is missing some of my face, my hands, my whole leg, my foot, and it has a lot of the table. So we're going to make some refinements. So I'm going to choose my Quick Selection tool, and you can choose on your keyboard, your bracket keys can adjust the size of your brush. So I'm just going to make sure I'm on Add to Selection and making sure my brush is always smaller if you're using the Quick Selection tool. You don't want to take this brush anywhere outside of what you're trying to select. So go right up to the edge if needed. See, even that got a little bit too close. You can always subtract. Zooming in helps too to make a better selection. So just kind of keep going back and forth. The better your selection is, the less work you're going to have to do to your layer mask. So I'm going to get rid of some of where I'm sitting. I really don't want the bench to be in there, but I do want my leg to exist and my foot. All right, and then I'm going to go back and eliminate some stuff. Okay, now I will say it's better to have a little bit too much selected than not enough. But either way, we can make some refinements to our layer mask if our selection wasn't perfect. Now, the only other thing that you want to consider adding in would be your shadows. Shadows are really important to make an image like this look realistic. So you could do one of two things. We could add it in now. I have a really large shadow of myself along the table here. But if it's not going to make a really good selection, then this is something we might do with our brush tool on our layer mask. Okay. Now we are going to have other areas that have shadows. Anywhere that your clone is touching a surface, sitting, standing, leaning, or if the sun is shining, you will see shadows on the ground. So I probably have missed a bunch, so we'll come back to that in a little bit. So I'm going to zoom out, not a perfect selection, but let's go ahead and see what it looks like. I'm going to add my layer mask, which should keep what I've selected visible and make anything not in the selection hidden, which should reveal the layer that's directly underneath it. Right? If you take a look at the mask, all the areas that are black are hidden on the top layer, so I can now see the layer that's underneath it. Awesome. Okay, so this is where I can go in though, and I need to refine my selection. And what I mean by that is if I zoom in, not my selection, sorry, my layer mask, my shadow looks a little crazy here. I think I had something coming out of my pocket. I'm missing part of my leg. I didn't realize I didn't select. So lots of little errors that we can fix now. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to make sure on my layers panel that the layer mask is selected, the black and white square. And I'm going to switch to my brush tool. Make sure that on your toolbar that you can access your foreground and background colors. And you can always use the little mini version to reset it to black and white and use the little arrow to switch back and forth. It makes it super easy. Because with black, we're going to hide, and with white, we're going to reveal. Now, in this case, I want to start revealing some of the things that I left out. Now, I can adjust the size of the brush up here, or using the bracket keys on my keyboard. But I also want to consider the hardness of my brush. If you're at 100, you're going to get a really precise edge brush, which is just not going to look very natural for this project. So you want to be somewhere lower than 50%. 0 is fine. I'm going to be somewhere around 20. And it's going to give me a more soft, natural edge to my brush, especially when painting back shadows. And the idea here is just I want to go around the perimeter of my clone, oops, undo, Control Z, with white, because I want to reveal stuff I may have missed. So I'm definitely, hair, that's a big one. Hair, it can be so like little fine pieces sticking out, and it's so easy to, or so difficult to make selections of hair. So coming back with the brush, notice all the stuff that I missed. So I'm going to take the brush all the way around, just kind of taking my time. I'm going to go as quick as I can for you guys, make the brush a little bit bigger. And anything that I might have missed, right? See, there's my lanyard. Okay. The chair is moving because there was a little bit of movement when I took the picture. All right. I'm also painting where I'm sitting because I am on a surface. There's going to be a shadow there. All right, I need my leg back. That would be good. All right, I need my foot back, and I'm sure I have a shadow near my foot. There we go. Let's check the other leg. Yep, missing part of my pants. Even though I can barely see it, there's probably a foot there somewhere. There it is. Okay, so really I'm just kind of painting and seeing what I can find. And if I mess up and I paint away something I needed, I can always do Control Z and undo it. All right, I'm going to go next to my arm here. And I'm also going to paint the table. So notice where this shadow stops and it looks kind of weird. All right, I got to get the rest of my hand shadow. Once it stops, I can stop. And I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing and just kind of paint and make sure all my shadow's there. That's kind of a weird edge to a shadow. So let's go ahead and fill that in. But be careful not to paint too much, because if I keep painting, what I'm doing is I'm essentially hiding or revealing that part of the top layer, which is going to hide my bottom layer. So Control Z. Let's make sure we don't mess with that clone. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now the only other thing to consider is that there might be a larger shadow on the ground. If I look at this clone, I have a shadow of me on the ground. This one, I don't really have anything on there right now. So I feel like there's something missing. So it's worth it to take a moment using white, see if you can reveal any missing shadows. All right, and you see how we're definitely have missed some shadows. Now I don't want to get close to my other clone. That right there, that's me. That is my left clone. So I want to make sure that is visible. And now that is looking pretty realistic. Now, if you have more clones than this, you are going to repeat these steps. If you had more clones, there would be more layers underneath this top layer. You would go to the next layer and do this with the next clone. It might even be helpful to make the top layer invisible so that you can do the select subject again without confusing Photoshop. If you have multiple clones visible while you use select subject, Photoshop might not be able to find your subject for you. So you can make that one invisible, but the steps are the same. Select the subject, add a layer mask to hide anything that wasn't in the selection, and then use your brush tool on the layer mask to make sure that you aren't missing any body parts or any shadows that should be there. Once you've done that, our last steps here are to do some cropping. Now the cropping can be done here or in Lightroom. I'm going to show you how to do it here because we've never done it before. So the cropping tool's here, and there's a couple reasons why I want to crop. I've got a lot of excess background I don't need, but also that transparent edge, once I get it back into Lightroom, it's just going to be a white edge, and we don't want this weird white edge. So at the top, I'm going to select my ratio to our normal 2:3 ratio. Let's switch it back to horizontal with the arrows here. And then I'm just going to crop out some excess background I don't need and make sure I'm not including any of that transparent background. I don't want it. Okay. And once I'm happy with it, I can hit done. All right, that step could have also been done in Lightroom, so you take your pick. All right, our last step here is we're saving, we're exporting, and then we're going to put the JPEG back into Lightroom and do a final edit. So let's go ahead and go through saving, file, save as. Remember, saving is for Photoshop files. We're going to go into OneDrive, digital photo folder, and we're going to name this your project name. So it should be your name, cloning, and we are going to make multiples of these, so let's go ahead and put a 1 next to it. Photoshop files will keep your layers, so in case you need to come back and edit this, you can. But because it's pretty much done, we're going to go ahead and file export. Click export as a JPG, same spot, same name. Let's hit save. All right, now once you have exported, we can actually open up Lightroom, and we're going to add that JPEG back into Lightroom and do a final edit there. Like right now it looks great, but why not make it look even better with a preset or a manual edit? So in order to do that, make sure that you have the album, your cloning album selected. Go ahead and add photos. Let's browse. We're going to go into our OneDrive one last time. Actually, I'm already there in my digital photo folder. Here is the same file names, but that's a Photoshop file, so I'm going to choose the other one, JPEG. All right, let's go ahead and add that image in there. It'll probably appear at the end. There we go. All right, now up to you. Preset, manual edit, or a mixture of both. The idea here is to enhance, right? Do something extra cool and interesting. Just make sure that you're not doing anything that is making it harder to see your clones or turning people weird colors. We don't want Oompa Loompa Shreks out there. So find something that you feel like is flattering to your subject, but also creates a cool effect. And if you like something but it's not totally right, you can always look at more like this and explore it a little bit more. You can also take an existing preset and adjust it manually if you're not super happy with it. You know what? I actually like these, but I don't like the hint of color. So you know what? You might as well just do a black and white one. I'm going to go ahead and choose one of these. So once you have your edit, okay. Okay, actually I found one that was better eventually. Okay, so here is my choice of edit. And once you're all done with one of the final cloning images, you can go ahead and export it. For the last time, we right click, we export again to make sure that we're naming it. So we're gonna have to name it again. Make sure it's still your name dash cloning. And once you put it into OneDrive, you are good to go. All right, everybody, and that's how to create the cloning effect.